Qapla! Warriors of the Empire! Yes, that's right. Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Play Starfleet Command Orion Pirates Plus Mod. We also have a couple of more mods added onto this season, but we'll get into that later. You'll see it. It'll be much better if you just see it rather than I tell you about it. This season, we're going to play as a Klingon captain in the general campaign. So, much like how we played the Federation in the last one, well, this time we're playing the Klingon side of the street. Now, instead of just going out and fighting the Federation in what would essentially just be a mirror matchup of what we had been doing, we're instead going to do the resubjugation of the Hydran Kingdom. One, it's a slightly smaller target, so it's a little bit easier to accomplish, and two, it'll sort of vary up the combat a bit more. We were escorted a lot of the times during Season 1 by Hydran battle groups, especially against Klingon Empire star bases and shipyards, unfortunately. But this time, you'll get to see just how it is to fight these guys. Like 100% of the time. Granted, we will still run into a lot of Federation ships, as their influence is pretty universal throughout the galaxy if you're fighting against them, but this should give us a little bit more variety, and just sort of build on what we already know about how to play this game. So, without further ado, let's begin a new campaign. Do not be so impressed with yourself, Lieutenant Commander. You are not the first to gain command of a Klingon warship. There is always a warrior behind you who would like nothing better than to take command from you. Remember where he is as you face the enemy. Yeah, I felt like I needed to do it. Sort of going for Gowron, can't quite pull it off. But anyway, welcome to a brand new campaign and the very beginning. This time we are the Klingon Empire. We're going to avoid the Federation, and just going back to see this map from the very beginning just gives you an appreciation for how much work we ended up doing during Season 1. But we're going to get right on into it. And we are flying a KE-4C. That is, if I'm recalling correctly, a police gunboat leader. Right now, because it's the early era, we only have access to slow drones. So maximum missile speed is 16. But the bright side of that is they're free. So we're just going to keep on reloading these things every single time we get into port. So since we're going after the Hydran Kingdom down here, we're going to head immediately down to the southeast. And we actually didn't run into any mission here. So we're going to push right into the neutral zone, see what we can't run into, see if we just get automatically jumped by battle cruisers and dreadnoughts immediately. Maybe repeat our last campaign. So we are powering things up. Now, you may have noticed I immediately put my phaser capacitor down to about half effectiveness, and the reason for this is, well, quite frankly, Klingon ships, well, if we look at these firing arcs, these two phaser 2s that we have, which are weaker than phaser 1s, can only fire in the forward arc. These two phaser 2s can only fire in the rear arc, so our main firepower really is going to be these disruptor cannons. Since only half of our phasers can fire at a time, we may as well charge them at half rate and get the speed buff out of that. And who do we got? We're facing off against a frigate way out here. We're going to put a probe out because now more than ever it is important to have good information on who you're fighting. Take a little time for it to get there. We've only got 0.5 point of power to work with at this time. According to this, it is a CU. HCU. This is a Hellbore armed frigate. Now the Hellbore is a fun weapon. We are probably going to repeat a lot of the descriptions we made from Season 1, but what the Hellbore does, it's a long-range cannon that fires a burst of energy that when it hits your shields, it explodes, wraps around them, and hits the weakest one. So you'll notice that this gunboat leader happens to have 3 weak rear shields. He's always going to hit those weak rear shields every time he fires. So things are going to get kind of hectic. We're going to group up our weapons, so we have the disruptor selected on their own hardpoint. Back that up with some phasers, and third hardpoint will be the missiles. Now we are at maximum range. We're not quite there, and still no. I thought 30 was our range, but I guess not quite as we're zipping on in. There we go, 22. Both shots hit. We're going to go ahead and reinforce our forward shield and our rear shield, and at this time we're going to dump a point into ECM. We are kind of fragile, so we are going to have to play with that in mind. Blast through and pop a couple of missiles at close range. He immediately fires his weapons at them, and we're able to take out 2 of his shields right off the bat. That's really nice. He is zipping along at a massively high speed, and we will attempt to match that. Unlike the Federation ships where we just kind of plodded along and didn't really care about how quickly we were going, simply because it didn't matter that much to us, well, the Klingons, it matters. Now we're not quite able to power things, so I am going to take power away from the phaser capacitor, because it is more important, in my opinion, to have these disruptors going every single turn. They deal, not more damage, but a decent amount. They fire at a rapid rate. They're fairly accurate. And I'm going to close it a little bit closer. Good enough. We'll pop a couple more missiles. They're free. We have 16 more of them. He did dump a Wild Weasel, which did sacrifice pretty much all of his initiative, which will give us a chance to overrun him and get in here with these rear-firing phaser 2s. Now, they're more there for point defense work. Oh, and right there, our decision to be greedy with our phaser capacitor kind of bit us in the butt a bit. We didn't have enough energy to fire that hard point twice, at least not for a little while. We have lost our rear shield, which is not great. We're going to have to stay out of his frontal arc, because that hellbore will hurt, and hurt badly. Looks like we need to have some repair on the engines, but I'm going to hold off on that. We're not actually below our normal maximum speed, so I don't consider it a priority. Now, I kind of don't want to be cutting so close to this guy, because one, my rear shields are awful, and he has this Phaser G. And we know just how powerful Phaser Gs are from Season 2, or Season 1. It was monstrously effective. Basically, we would overrun a target and hit it with flank Phaser G fire, and it would just curl up and die. So we do kind of want to play a little bit longer range than that, more play into the strengths of our disruptors. Unfortunately, he's not going to give me a whole lot of choice, and if I want to keep turning in on him to keep this rear protected from him, I'm going to have to keep on crushing him close, which is not great. We have lost our anti-missile system, not important, because he doesn't have any missiles anyway. We've lost our shuttle bay, which we're not using. We could prep our scatter pack, but I don't feel like that's a great use of our capabilities right now. I am going to increase the speed a little bit here. We're going to start really trying to outmaneuver this guy. Still haven't lost any points of power, which is good. But I do want to hold a little bit longer range on this guy. We do also want to reverse the direction of this turn. And now that he's opened fire with that, we're going to pop a couple of these. Select all weapons. We succeeded. Come in close and rip into him. Put a hole right through him, and we're going to turn out to the port. Because again, we want to keep this vulnerable starboard side away from him. We've taken some kind of light damage, but it is somewhat important to note. You just don't want to take damage early on in the game. Anything you have to spend on repairs is money that you're not saving up to buy that awesome cruiser. And really, if you want to be more efficient, you want to do as few jumps in ship power as possible. So our high speed is allowing us to kind of stay on the front foot here. Selecting our disruptors, getting them ready for another run. 2 more shots, 2 right into him at pretty medium range. His hellbore should be ready to go sometime soon. We're going to select our collar hardpoint and get a couple of shots in. That Phaser G, though, really proving to be a problem. So we're going to come out a little bit, build some range in. His Phaser G can't fire beyond a range of, I believe it's 2. Not 2, but 4. So as long as we stay outside of that, that Phaser G can't come to hurt us. And now that we've managed to chip him down a bit and how fast he's going, we should be able to control the engagement a little bit better. With that said, I am going to have to curl in a little bit closer than I want to, simply because, well, he's forcing me to, in order to keep that turn. Are able to distract his Phaser Gs, and we flow out again, and I'm able to hit on the retreating side with these rear-firing Phaser 2s. As you can kind of see already, this is a much more different style of combat than what we're sort of used to. I'm going to reduce our power there even more. Normally we would be just getting in tight and annihilating things, but here, if we do that, well, you can see, we've taken some pretty serious hits. It's not major damage, it's not to any system that would be considered critical, but it's enough to really concern me about, well, trying to play in tight with him. That Phaser G of his gives him a huge advantage, and just looking at the damage chart, we really do want to stick to his port side. So his port side is that one. So we're going to see if we can't continually try and work around him, ease our way into it, take advantage wherever we can. Oh, I was not paying attention. Our power is really suffering here, which is why our heavy weapons haven't charged at all. That's not good at all. So we're going to come in, opening side, another couple of shots, raking fire. Can I get through? Oh, there we go. Frigates at low level, just not a lot of armor, can't take a lot of punishment beyond some. So even just those couple of missiles were able to take him out. That's sort of where it's going to end up being. Most of our heavy weapons firepower is filled in those missiles. We were able to take the tile. We're going to dart back here, go back for a resupply, took 29 damage. Not great, not horrible. Patch up here, couple of spare parts. We really don't want to be spending much cash here at all, because as you can see, well, back to a basic shipyard, but things are about 1,000 if we want to get up into the cruiser range. There is a 582 for an F5C frigate leader, which would be nice. It would be a definite upgrade. Same warp power as us, but phaser 1s instead of phaser 2s, and phaser 1s and 2s take the same amount of power. So anyway, back to the missions on a patrol. Hopefully, because we're on top of a starbase, that'll sort of keep them light for us, kind of keep it the way that we want to do it. And it's the cargo box mission. Every time we've done this mission before, we have had no reason for wanting to take these cargo boxes, because every single time we came here before, well, we were full on spare parts. Today, that's just not the case. We have 5 spare parts out of, I think, 20. So we need all the stuff that we can get. So we're going to go by here and beam up as much stuff as possible. And we're going to do this at maximum speed because, well, it is kind of a boring mission. Gotta wait for the transporter to be ready. One way we can do that, I think, is to check that, will it? Yeah, it'll show. And we're just going to constantly beam in parts until it is empty for us. Now, as you can see, there's no enemies on the map. But this is a nice, cheap, easy way of getting, well, resupplied. Especially early on in a campaign. And I hope I'm filling up. Let's see what happens when we hit that again. It's commando to see when it's ready. It's ready. Beam in. Oh, I think the box is empty. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. And that one is empty as well. Empty. That one's not empty. So some of these boxes are going to be empty, some of them not so much. Now these are inside a nebula. So we're going to go... Oh, no, they're not. They're just outside of it. Okay. If we had gone into that nebula, we would take damage because it's an ionized gas nebula or something like that. So going to slow down here. And beam in. Yep, we're taking parts on. And so we're just going to sit here and keep on doing this. A little bit boring, but this is actually saving us quite a bit of cash. I mean, it is 5 parts every... it's 5 prestige every time we beam in one of these things. So it's kind of worth the time. Early on, this is not a bad mission to get. Especially when you think about it, because... Oh, are you empty? Yeah, that one's empty too now. Early on, when you are really strapped for cash, easy missions with big cash rewards and, you know, free stuff is always really good. Yeah. Now, one of the advantages to being in this light gunboat is, one, this actually has some pretty good shields for a Klingon ship. I know it has red shields in the rear, but it's got 26 forward shields, which isn't bad. It really kind of emphasizes that the Klingons front load their ships pretty heavily. Which this is actually more powerful than the standard F5 frigate, which is basically a tier above, because it's the leader version of the police gunboat. If we were to take the leader version of the F5 frigate, it would match us in shields, because the Klingons believe in giving a higher ranking officer more powerful stuff. But there we go, an easy mission. Picked up a bunch of spare parts there. Mission complete. And yeah, so cargo wreck works to our favor. Gives us a free mission. And hopefully prestige. Yep, free 300 prestige. And if we go to supply, we now have 12 spare parts when we had 5. So we gained 7 spare parts out of that one. We're at 566, which is still slightly outside of range of the F5C. That probably will be our next by. I'm not 100% sure, but if things go kind of normally, that's what I'm sort of aiming for. It's a planetary assault in a frigate? Are you kidding me? Well, if it's a planetary assault on a basically undefended planet, we can take that. What do we got? A Hydrogen frigate standing across from us. Oh, and the clock is still at maximum speed. So we're going to half this so that we've got additional power. And interesting. I'm just watching this readout down here, and when it skips down like that, it means you're trying to charge too much of something. So what do we got here? We're going to send a probe his way. Take a look at this. It's an SAR. I assume it's not a search and rescue frigate, but hey, you never know. And according to all scanning probe reports, she's a fusion-armed one. Okay, this one we're going to have to play at long range. If we try and get close to this guy, he's going to annihilate us. So, with that said, he's doing a speed of 20, and we're going to make sure that we are always doing faster than him. Because if not, well, we'll get fried, and he'll have a field day. So I really do need more power to pour into engines, and that's all I've got. He's actually faster than me. So at a range of 22, we're going to fire. There we go. Oh, he fired his weapons at maximum range as well. And there's another frigate here. Okay, we're in trouble now. This gunboat is not really designed to be able to fight a whole bunch of stuff. That's a night type. KN for night. I'm not entirely sure just sort of what he'll be able to do to us. He looks to be sort of light cruiser build. I base that solely on the fact that he's got a crazier, different design from the last two frigates we fought, this one included. So we're going to try and stay at high speed, try and work around the edges. I'm really disappointed we weren't given any support on this mission. It kind of seems like the sort of mission you would give support to a frigate, trying to capture a planet. We're going to try and drag him into the missiles. He won't be that stupid to pull into it. But if he is, okay, so he's going to hold them, and he's going to keep on firing at us at long range. That works for me. Working on prepping a scatter pack. We want to have that ready as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we don't have a significant maneuverability advantage on this guy, which is a problem because, well, our forward arc is the only arc we fight from. I should really take some time and reinforce this rear shield with the power I don't have. So what we're going to do here is we're going to dump a mine. See what he does with it. See if we can gain some distance on it. No, he's just going to fly around it and come into us. A couple of missiles his way, and we may have to get in close with this, which I don't really want to do. I assume he's got at least one more fusion cannon. To his rear, a couple of shots in back, and passing by. When we run out of missiles, that's it. That's a huge chunk of our firepower taken away. I'm not quite sure what this knight is doing. He is Hellbore armed with a pretty significant phaser armament to back that up. So he's no slouch in a fight. Getting ready with another couple of missiles. He's actually in a position to outrun them, doing his 24 speeds, so there really wouldn't be much of a point in firing at him until he sort of curls back into us. We do want to maintain a position right on his 6. And haven't managed to punch through yet, but we did manage to take away, well, all those shots from that phaser Gatling. I don't know if that's a positive, because it's quite a bit of damage. How fast is this knight going? Speed of 27, so he's matching us here. Oh, and here we get hit by the Hellbore. You know what? Discretion is definitely going to be the better part of valor here. Getting into a fight against two frigates in a gunboat is not going to serve us very well. Quite frankly, we're outmatched here. If we had support, might have been a different story. But we don't. We didn't. And so the story is this. We're going to drop this and go on. Now some of you may point out, hey, this is dishonorable. Aren't you supposed to be playing Klingons? But the rule on Klingons is, at least these versions of Klingons, victory is the greatest reward. And if you can't achieve victory, come back tomorrow so you can achieve victory. So we're going to head on out of here at maximum speed. Not going to hang around, not going to fight this planet. It's not theirs anyway, so it's not like we're taking anything out of their hands. So, no real important things happening here. So warping out. Really kind of wish we had a D7 along for the ride. That really would have evened things out and kind of skewed it in our favor. But we got to take what we can get. Or rather, in this case, suffer what we did. Couldn't take the planet, but we are just a single tile away from going back home. So we're going to go supply, patch up the 3 points of damage we took. No real damage to our Marines, and we got the shuttle refunded. So we'll restock on missiles, and just double check to make sure in spot. Yeah, we got Type 4s. And we'll go on the patrol. An asteroid-based defense might be a safer decision from this perspective, but I kind of want to keep things sort of rolling a bit, partially to practice, as long as we're not quite on the deep end yet. Much of my skills so far has been training lately on Federation ships, so flying much more maneuverable and, frankly, fragile Klingon ships is a bit of a change. So let's see what we got out there. There's our ship, and it is a Federation frigate. It is an FF, so a standard Federation frigate. Okay, that works for me. We're going to drop a little bit in speed, and wonder why we've got such a weird... Just watching this power system's readout fluctuate between certain speeds. Anyway, we know the weaknesses of the Federation, and that's ECM. He's going to have 2 photon torpedoes, 3 forward-firing phaser 1s, and 2 rear-firing phaser 3s. That was the armament we had when we were in this frigate FF type, so that's what he's going to have. And we can use that pre-knowledge to our advantage. We will put points into the ECM, which will make his photon torpedoes nearly useless. We also know that he is not particularly maneuverable, so that definitely works in our favor. We're going to get more out of our speed. Right there, and I think that's enough. Yeah, we're maintaining an ECM point, defense shift of 1 here, which a photon torpedo finds that to be utterly mind-meltingly difficult to deal with. So we're going to move on in here. He's doing a speed of 27. A long-range shot, probably not even a proximity, and look, his speed drops right down as he tries to recharge them. In the meantime, we hit our engagement range. Both shots missed. We're going to turn off because we want to get behind him. I am going to go and prep the scatter pack because I want to have that ready for him. Set up for Type 3, and we're going to pop a couple of missiles. If he wants to maintain this turn, he's going to have to drag himself into them, which is not something a Federation captain's going to want to do. However, we are kind of low on reload. Oh no, we have 15. Huh, interesting. Thought we had less. So he did waste a whole bunch of phaser fire to do that, and now he's got to maintain a point of energy into a tractor beam in order to hold it there. So that really works in our favor. We're able to get a follow-up shot going in, but now we're going to slow down. We're going to slow down and slot in right behind him. We have the maneuverability advantage, we have a power advantage, and we're going to put in reinforcement to the forward shields. As soon as I can click the button. There we go. And now we're just going to sort of sit here and lay into it. He's going to have to spend phasers to either shoot at these or tractor beam, which is power that he won't have for other things, like charging photon torpedoes. Although us staying back here is really going to work in our favor on that one, because as long as we're back here, he's not charging photon torpedoes. We are going to try and stay just outside of a range of 2, because any closer than that, and we start taking flashback damage from our own disruptor beams, we don't want to do that. But it looks like he's not giving us much of a choice. He's turning a bit on us, but I'm still feeling kind of confident. I want to get one more shot off with these forward phasers before we sort of push out again in order to gain some separation. So forward firing phasers, in through that. And we're just sort of lightly tapping him now. The rear one's now firing. Another one through, and if we can just turn on a little bit to get the disruptors in on this action, I'll be happy. Come on, a little bit tighter. There it is. 2 more shots in with disruptors. We've taken out one of his phaser 1s, which is a significant part of his armament. I mean, we know Federation ships, half the point of their heavy weapons is just to back up their phasers. We are keeping one shield in particular on him, so we're just going to go ahead and buff that single shield. He's not facing this side or the front, so it doesn't really matter. Keep up the light phaser fire through. And this kind of seems a little bit like deja vu to me. I'm remembering back during Season 1 when, well, would get a Klingon ship to our rear, and there was nothing we could do about it. That's sort of what we're taking advantage of now. We're going to cut across over here and pop off this one here. Our sort of... what did I call that? I think I called it like a chin phaser or something. It's not really, because it fires to our rear. And yeah, just going to keep on this sort of path. Speed up a little bit. We want to keep ahead of him. Or behind him. We don't want to get ahead of him because those photon torpedoes, it's only 8 damage, but 8 damage can be very hurtful. So we'd like to avoid that. So we're going to zip along here a bit. Stay out of range also of a lot of his phaser power. Federation early frigates. It looks like they have good phaser arcs, but then you start to realize that they don't have a lot of concentration of phaser firepower. So, without that concentration of phaser firepower, well, you get situations like this, where we are essentially abusing the fact that his arcs are practically non-existent. He can fire at us with a single phaser 1, as long as we stay in his aft starboard quarter, and if we get close enough, he can fire with a phaser 3 as well. So we're going to slow down a bit, see if we can't pull this turning circle in a bit closer, and get in there with more disruptor fire. Now we are going to turn away, and we're going to reverse this turn. We're still maintaining a defensive shift of 1, so I don't mind cutting across in front of him. Also, his photon torpedoes just are not charging. I don't know if we've dealt significant damage to him in order to make it so he can't do it, but it's working for me as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to switch the reinforcement over to the port side, and really just sort of take advantage of the fact that we have a controlling share in this fight, and he doesn't. Another couple of shots into him right there, and I want to speed things up just a little bit, and we're going to come in right around on him, and we're going to blast him with everything we got from behind. He's looking to disengage now, it would seem. So we're going to speed up just a little bit, see what he does. Oh, he's trying to keep that one shield on us. Dumping out a mine in order to discourage a close pursuit. But we may be able to outrun that mine. Yep. Oh, no, we couldn't. So we're going to try and cut across. We really want to get into this area here on this starboard side because it's a hole. And being able to shoot through a hole, well, saves us a lot of time. Oh, he managed to shoot through us because we got a little bit close. I'm going to let the range play out just a little bit. I want to get it range of 2 before I start firing disruptors at him. And the reason for that is disruptors will cause flashback damage. We're going to pop a couple of these missiles on him. He did fire, a lot of his phasers in order to get that down the throat shot on us. Now we're just sort of chipping down at his shields. Again, he had to spend his phaser 1s in order to take those things out. Now we're actually on the wrong side. We don't want to be on this side of him because this side gives him the most ability to shoot back at us, which, as you might imagine, is not something we want to promote. We're just going to reinforce 360 for now, and we're going to pull the range out a bit. He's getting ready to fire another phaser 1 at us any time now. Yeah, there it is. And I'm going to wait for the second one before I turn right back in. Distances are a little bit deceiving at this point in the game. We were flying cruisers and dreadnoughts for so long that, well, when a ship was this close, it was range 10. And now, because it's so small, the camera's a little bit closer because of that, well, things seem off. Let's see what he's got. He still has a pair of... tractor beams in order to catch those. And we're going to end this by doing this. Fired everything we had. Punched another hole through him. His speed is down and his shuttle bay is out, so he can't catch all of us. And there we go. A little bit of a longer fight, a little bit more of a, dare I say, strategic fight, simply because we're dealing with lower fire powers here, and, well, we don't have the crunch potential we used to have. I may just be overcomplicating these fights. It might be just a good idea to rush in with heavy weapons on overload, but I kind of prefer it this way. Check the shipyard. We're going to be checking this a lot until we kind of get used to the way that Klingon ships are priced. A whole bunch of D6 cruisers are available. These would have 4 disruptors, 2 missile rack Fs, and 7 Phaser 2s. They're definitely older style ships from 2222, so they're 42-year-old ships at this point. A D7N would kind of be like something really nice to have. It's only a diplomatic cruiser, but actually, honestly, what I would really want is I think it's a D7C? Yeah, this would be the command variant. And you can see it's got the heavier Phaser 1s in the bow rather than Phaser 2s. But I think that's where we're going to end it today. Matches take a little bit longer in this one, and I kind of want to keep the time a little bit more under control in this episode. So, if you like what you've been seeing, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.